friend. Welcome to the podcast. I am Melissa Matheson, and it's the first week of December. How on earth are we only 23 days until Christmas? I'd like to say that all of my shopping is done, but thanks to Amazon's one-day shipping, I still have 22 days left to shop. And no, I wasn't paid by Amazon for that little endorsement, but I sure do appreciate their contribution to keeping me sane during the holidays by allowing me to shop from the comfort of my cozy home. After all, I'd rather be here with you and a cup of coffee anyway. Today we're talking to my friend Holly about a few things that a lot of women have a difficult time talking about. So grab your coffee and join us at the table. We're talking about infertility, wondering if you're good enough, and making friends as a grown-up. Today on What's Next, God? So you are a coffee drinker because you said you had a cup of coffee right before you got here, and you're on another cup. Yes. How many cups of coffee do you drink every day, Holly?
In a working day, at least 3.
Like morning, and then when's cup number 2, when's cup number 3?
I always have a cup in the morning. And to be honest, I prefer cold brew in the morning.
Okay.
Something about it being cold wakes me up. I don't know. I feel like I get too cozy with that hot cup of coffee.
Oh, see, that's when I like it because it's, fall and winter and it feels cozy in the morning. But you need to get going and get out of the house.
I do, because I have to be at work at 7:30.
Ooh.
And I sit in an office. I'm pretty much alone for most of the day. No one else is in my office or in my space. So if it's a slow day, I need to be awake.
Yeah.
So cold brew in the morning. And then after lunch, I always have a cup of hot coffee.
Okay.
So at least 2.
And you put creamer in it usually, or sometimes black?
Sometimes. I actually probably prefer it with just half and half.
Okay.
But I'm not really that picky about it.
You just want the caffeine?
I just like coffee.
You just like coffee?
I like the bite that it has, and I just like it, so I just drink it.
Does your husband drink coffee?
He does. He
tell us a Cam story.
Because he will tell you, like, if you say, do you like coffee? He'll be like, yeah, I like it the girly way. He wants it super sweet, super, like, he doesn't really want to taste the coffee.
So you're married.
Yes.
Tell me about your family.
Cameron and I have been married for 22 years.
That's a good number.
It's a good number. And we have 2 boys, 18 and 14. So Cameron and I met right out of high school. We graduated in June, met in October. And honestly, I mean, I was a lot harder around the edges, I guess I would say, back then. And so I was just very upfront with him. I was like, I don't want anything serious. I just want to have fun. I don't want to get married. I don't want to have kids. And second date in, he was like, I love you and I'm going to marry you. I was like, I think actually my words to that were, don't ever say that to me again. And so, yeah. But then about 3 or 4 months into it, I was like, oh, shoot, I really love him. Darn it. What have I done? So, yeah.
No. Now, where did you grow up?
Kokomo, Indiana.
Indiana.
Yeah.
And so you've lived there your whole life?
My whole life, yep.
Did Cam live there his whole life?
He did. He kind of lived in, I guess, what you would consider in the county. So it was actually just like a little tiny town, like what Weston would be, called Rusheville.
Okay.
So we didn't go to the same school. But yeah, pretty much we were 10 minutes from each other.
I want y'all to come back and do a camel episode with us and tell us that whole story about how you met.
You'll have to, there'll be so much laughter in that.
I can't wait to. That's going to be good. Now, I haven't known you very long. We're kind of new friends. How long have you been here? 3 years?
It'll be 4 in July.
I can't believe it's been that long.
I know. We can't either, honestly.
Now, your boys they're a senior
and a freshman.
And a freshman. Yep. So they're growing up.
I know. I'm struggling with that more than what Cameron is, probably. Cameron's like, freedom. We can travel. And I'm like, what is my existence going to be?
So being a mom is a big deal to you.
It is. worked hard to get those boys. I dealt with some infertility.
Did you?
So for Noah, it was a couple years of fertility treatment and all the fun things.
Really?
So yes, so we I feel very proud of my kids because I just feel like they are a gift, honestly.
Yeah. What was that like, wanting to have kids? Was it something did you ever think, well, that's just the way it is? Or who was the one that suggested the treatments?
I did, which is funny because I was the one that didn't want kids at first.
That's what I was thinking. You said you didn't want kids, and now...
The Lord.
Yeah.
The Lord, he changes things and softens things. And I mean, it's just one of those things that I knew I needed to be a mother. And it was hard for a while. And people don't realize it is straining when everyone around you is having kids. And we weren't always open about that situation just because sometimes I just don't want to talk about it. And so people would say things like, well, you guys better get on it. What's going on? Why aren't you having kids? And people don't realize sometimes, like, don't say things like that. Like, I try never to, when I see a married couple now, to question their timeline. Because
you don't know if it's by choice or if they don't have an option.
Yeah. So
that's actually a good point. I never really thought about that because I always think some people choose to wait, and you really have no way of knowing if they're choosing or if they don't have a choice.
And, looking back on it now, honestly, when we were trying to get pregnant with Isaac, we actually had determined, like, we have to be done with this. Noah, it will be it. And that's okay. And there's a process when you go through fertility and do some things. And so in order to not do that anymore, one of the requirements was I had to take a pregnancy test. And that's how I found out I was pregnant with Isaac.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
So you didn't take fertility treatments with your second one, or you did?
I did. And I was trying to stop and just go back to life as normal.
Because you didn't want to do it anymore.
Yeah.
It got to be too much.
And I remember being so mad that day because I was like, why is this doctor making me take another pregnancy test? Like, why is this happening to me? And I was on the phone with my mom, and I had left the pregnancy test in the bathroom. And about 20 minutes later, I went back and it was positive. And I was stunned. I was like, oh my gosh, I'm going to have another baby. I remember calling my mom and I was crying, and it was a whole thing. But yeah.
How long were you and Cam married before you got pregnant with Noah?
Almost 5 years. So, at the time I resented it because I felt like I was behind all my friends. But really, in hindsight now, I realize, like, the Lord was really solidifying us because we didn't know what was to come. And we needed that strength. We needed to be a unit because the year that we had Noah, Cameron's parents were killed in a car accident.
Oh, man.
So we didn't realize, like, now looking back on that, I can say, like, had we had kids right away and not had just he and I time, I think we would have struggled through that time. Because I had to learn how to, like, hold him up some days. It was very difficult. So I'm thankful now. Mm-hmm. I wasn't thankful then.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. If there's somebody right now listening that is probably in that place where you were 17, 18 years ago, wanting to have a baby, all their friends are having babies, what would you say to her? Say to her and to him.
Oh, man. I definitely would say treasure the time that you have, that it's just the two of you. And as hard as it is, don't panic. Mm-hmm. Don't discredit what's happening in you during that time, because it's important. and there is a process that's happening, especially if you're someone that trusts the Lord and wants to follow his leading. There's a reason. We may not know it, and that's so hard to say. It's so hard to say thinking that, because when you're going through it, you don't want to hear that.
Right.
But just cling to each other, strengthen your relationship, and strengthen your relationship with the Lord during that time. It's uninhibited time where you're not picking up after someone, you're not changing diapers, you're not sleep deprived, that you can really just be with the Lord as a couple.
Did you ever, in that process, feel like there was something wrong with you? What were your thoughts?
Wow, that is a loaded question.
Yeah, because I've heard people say, they wrestle with that. Is there something wrong with me? Is God mad at me?
Yeah. Yes, it wasn't that I thought something was wrong with me. I really wrestled with the mental part of, because of my relationship with my biological mother, feeling like maybe I wasn't qualified to be a mother.
Okay.
Because that is a deep valley.
Yes, that's a conversation probably for another day.
Yes, and so, yeah, I just felt like
you were qualified.
I just felt like maybe because of the wrong she had done, that maybe the Lord didn't think I could do it.
Yeah. So when did that change for you? Did that change before you got pregnant?
No, I would say probably the first 4 years of being a mom, I wrestled with wanting to be the exact opposite of her in every single way. And I did everything in my power to be the opposite of her in every single way. And sometimes that was not healthy at all. So I've definitely grown and found a good balance with that. But the first few years definitely were a struggle, because I just thought, I'm going to do it the total opposite of her. I don't care what that looks like. I'm not going to be like her.
Is that something you want to talk about?
Sure. I'm pretty open about that whole season of my life. That's not a secret.
So what was the hardest thing? What was the relationship with your mom like that caused you to think those things?
Well, I should probably start by saying that there is probably some brokenness in her that as a kid I didn't know and understand.
Yeah.
She had me when she was 15, and she married my dad, but it didn't last long. And I think from that point on, she just kind of went into a downward spiral with her life. And I think there's a lot of issues with identity there that need some healing. And so there was some drug use and lots of men, and she married another man, but it was abusive. And in 5th grade, I actually chose to go and live with my dad. At that point, it was just a very volatile household, and it wasn't healthy. There were other siblings there who I don't have a relationship now with. And so it's kind of one of those things that I just think that she didn't have the ability to mother.
Right.
She was not healthy herself, and to try to take care of someone else, now looking back on it, in the moment I was so resentful, but now looking back on it, it's almost wrong to ask someone to do something that they don't know how to do it.
Because she was doing only probably what she had seen done when she was a child.
Yeah, and I struggle with that a little bit, because I do know those grandparents. And from what I can see, it was a good home.
Okay.
But somewhere along the line, there was damage done somewhere. And she just didn't feel worthy And so I don't speak to her now. I have gone to some counseling to deal with some issues from that and just talk through that. And afterwards, I did reach out to her twice, and she chooses not to reach back. So
when you went to live with your dad in 5th grade, that was the last time you stayed with your mom, or did you ever go back?
I did go for weekend visits.
Okay.
But there was a point that became less and less. And then in 8th grade, I came home from school, and I remember my mom, I call my stepmom my mom. My mom, my dad, and my Mimi were sitting on the couch, and I was like, this is sort of weird. Why is Mimi here? Mm-hmm. And they were there to tell me that my mom had taken off with another man. No one knew where she was. And sort of at that point, that was it. I've seen her a few times since then. The last time I actually saw her face to face, she didn't recognize me.
Really?
So that was a hard pill to swallow. So
how did she not recognize you? Mental illness, or was she high?
No, I don't think she was high. And I still wonder even if she does any of those things. I don't know that because I don't know her anymore. But I found out later at the time that she actually had breast cancer and was very ill. But no one had reached out to tell me.
Okay.
So I don't know if it was chemo. There's so many things that could factor in there.
Plus, you look a lot different than you did in 8th grade.
Yes.
Maybe that's it.
Yes. And I had a child with me. So she was probably like, who is this person approaching me in a parking lot?
Oh, so it wasn't like at a family event or anything.
I recognized her in a parking lot, and I just thought, I'm going to go talk to her. And I just got the gumption up to go and talk to her. So
what'd you say to her?
I was just like, hey. And she was like, hey. I could tell by the look on her face. I was like, it's Holly. And she said, oh my gosh, and hugged me. And that was really the end of that. Like, didn't go on very long. I had Isaac with me at the time, but he was too young to understand what was happening. And I just said that was a friend. The boys didn't actually even know she existed until about 5 years ago.
Okay.
So
that changed how you mothered because you wanted to do the exact opposite of everything she did.
Yeah.
Do you think that that's good?
No, because I did it out of resentment.
Yeah.
My heart was not pure in that.
Yeah.
I was very angry and very hurt by her. And so I just did it because I wanted to spite her.
Yeah.
Now, I do wish that she knew how great my kids were. And I wish that she could see the life that I've built for myself and with my family. So I do feel sad, actually, for her for missing. She's missed a lot of things.
Yes.
But I can't change her choices.
Right.
And I do love her, and I forgive her. I could have had this conversation 10 years ago, and I could see red the whole time. And now I just feel sad for her.
Yeah.
It's sad when you have sacrificed your children for the choices that you've made. So,
how old were you when your dad married your stepmom that you're calling mom? How old were you? So 6th, 7th grade?
No, I was young.
Oh, so before you went to live with him? Mm-hmm. Oh, okay.
Yeah. I want to say maybe 5. So she's been part of our life probably the whole time I was alive. She was actually best friends with my dad's sister. And so that's how they met.
So you've known her your whole life pretty much. And she comes in as a mom figure. Yeah. Do you immediately connect with her as a mom? Uh-oh.
No. Wow. I mean, I think, honestly, of course, my feelings towards my biological mother played a part in this, but there was a sense that, and maybe this was her immaturity, I don't know, there was a sense that she didn't want me, maybe. And maybe some of that was my insecurity because of some hurts, but I really did everything to push her away. Yeah. I was looking back now, I'm like, Lord, please forgive me.
Yes.
Because I do know she had the best of intentions, but she was put in an impossible situation with a biological mother on one side that was not reliable, not dependable, would drop me off and leave me for a year,
Yeah.
A lot of crazy things happening. And with a child who just was angry.
Yeah.
And she did the best that she could. But I let things cut me in ways that I know she didn't intend. Like just little things. She would say, well, I never really wanted girls, but she came with the package. Ha ha ha, And that would cut me so deeply because I would be like, wow, neither one of my moms want me.
Right.
So
when did you start calling her mom? Or did you always call her mom?
No.
Because you were so little?
No, I didn't. I called her Teresa for a long time. It was probably after I married Cameron.
Really?
Yeah.
So you grew up calling her Teresa?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. Our relationship is very different now. And honestly, I credit that to our transition here. We didn't say we love you. We weren't that family. We just didn't love on each other in that way. We weren't huggy. We weren't emotional.
Mm-hmm.
And now I don't get off the phone without telling her that.
Yeah.
So we have come full circle.
Yeah. It sounds like it.
Yeah.
And the reason I see that is because this is the goodness of God, because it is how he can so redeem and restore. Mm-hmm. And it is nothing had to magically happen. There wasn't a connection, no reason for you to suddenly start feeling that other than being open to letting the Lord bring healing to some areas of your life. Yeah. And then it overflowed into some of these other relationships.
Yeah.
But even in that, how you could supernaturally be able to love your family, your husband, and your boys, because that is very different. Mm-hmm. The way you were raised is very different than the way your family is now. Yeah. You guys are pretty close.
Very close.
You're a close family.
Yeah.
So I can see that.
Yeah. There's not a lot of things we do without each other, honestly.
Yeah.
So
how did your relationship with your mom, or your non-relationship, obviously, you said that you were a very angry child. Was that something that you struggled with all of your life?
No. I mean, internally, probably yes. Externally, I just was non-emotional. So I feel like I probably swallowed that down pretty good when I was in front of people. And then the littlest thing would just set me off. I mean, crazy things would just make me so mad. And it was like, why am I getting so mad about this? But I just didn't know. The Lord had not healed me from some things at that point. So I don't even know if I answered your question, honestly.
You did. I'm wondering how, let me tell everybody one of the reasons I wanted to have a conversation with you today. Last week or week before, it was World Kindness Day. And you had posted something on Facebook about how you were never really great at celebrating friendships in your life, and that you had some wounds that had to be healed. Because I think you're a great friend, and I see you thriving in your friendships with people. So what was the difference before? I'm wondering if some of that anger you carried through and it affected you being able to connect with people, but you just said you didn't feel anything.
Yeah, I just shoved everything down. Really, I just built a wall, and I didn't let anybody in. And when I did let people in, I practically smothered them. It was this weird, I don't even know how to explain it. It was two very opposite ends of the spectrum. And part of that, I think I was so afraid of being abandoned that I either shoved you away or smothered you to death, because I didn't know how to have a healthy relationship, especially with females. That was very foreign to me.
What was foreign about it? What was hard about it?
I personally think that a lot of interacting, especially like female to female, you learn that from your mother. And I never really saw, I don't even know that my mom had friends.
Yeah.
Now my stepmom, I know they definitely had friends, but my biological mom, I just never saw that side of her. And so I think there was a disconnect for me with other females, just feeling like they always had an agenda. They were catty. They were talking bad about me. And that's my 6 coming out for sure. Worst case scenario thinking.
She's an Enneagram 6, people.
Yes. Worst case scenario thinking gets me every time.
Yeah.
So I just always assumed the worst of especially females. I just didn't trust them.
Did you ever have something happen with any female friends that made you feel that way? Or was that just something?
I think it's something that I built in my head. But because I did that, friendships fell away.
Yeah.
Because I can't imagine the amount of pressure my friends during that time felt like, wow, we can't please her. We can't. It was probably just too much pressure. Yeah. And so relationships did fail because I'm sure people didn't know how to respond to me.
When did that change?
Well, I do have a few people in my life that just stuck with me. They loved me and stuck with me, and they probably don't get near enough credit for that. But really the change came when we transitioned here to Hamilton, because I was in isolation here. We didn't know anyone. I didn't have any friends. The kids went to school. Cam went to work, and I was home alone 6 to 8 hours a day. And that was, wow. And through that time, and it was probably a solid 6 months that we had been here, I had to learn how to like myself. Mm. I had to learn how to be in relationship with myself.
That's interesting.
And understand, what do I need? What is my value? And I had a very good friend who gave me some really good advice. I remember I called her and I was like, I just miss home. I can't be here. This is too hard. I'm so lonely. And during that time, actually, I can remember I would take the kids to school and I would go home and get back in bed until I picked them up from school.
Oh, wow.
Because I just felt so alone. And she said, what are you doing? Get up. You have an entire day to spend with the Lord.
True.
What are you doing? You went down there because the Lord asked you to, and now you're just ignoring him. That was so revolutionary for me. I was like, oh my gosh, what have I been doing with myself? I had completely just ignored the whole reason we were there.
Yeah.
So I'm sure my neighbors thought I was crazy, but I knew I had to get out of the house. But at the time, just because of financial reasons and some things, we were really tightening the reins. And so I didn't want to go out driving or do this or that. So I would pace my driveway up and down.
Just to be
every
outside.
Morning. And I was praying out loud the whole time. I was pacing my driveway. My neighbors, bless their hearts, they were
no
probably
telling
like,
what
who
they
is
were
this
thinking.
crazy woman? And some days I probably looked terrible. I didn't shower before I went out there. I just knew I had to go outside.
Yeah.
And so a lot of healing happened in that driveway.
Because you learned who you were.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. When, what was the first friend outing that you did after that? season with the Lord? Do you remember?
Oh, gosh.
A lunch or a breakfast or...
It was probably with Jamie Houston.
Okay. We love her.
Yes. She was definitely my very first friend here. But wow, that was... Like if she tells the story, her first interaction was her sliding into our booth at the Mexican restaurant here in town.
Uh-huh.
I did not know who she was. She introduced herself. She says we met before then, but I don't remember it. And asking Cameron and I to help on the cleaning team.
Oh, yeah, for church.
And I was like, I guess, like...
Who are you and why did you just come sit down in the booth beside me? I have boundaries.
Yes. And I had big boundaries then. And the first day we showed up, she says she just remembers thinking, this girl hates me. But now we're the best of friends. Actually,
Yes.
she's coming in tomorrow
Is
and spending the
she?
week with us. So
That's so great.
yeah.
Well, sometimes what we want to think of our boundaries with people are what you called them walls. They are walls.
Yeah.
And Jamie, thank you for tearing down Holly's walls so we can all be friends with her today. We appreciate
thank you, Jamie.
your ministry.
Thank you, Jamie. That's so funny.
Because you are super intentional with relationships now. And I
Yes.
love that about you. Give somebody some practical things to do. So you talked about getting out of the house and walking the driveway, connecting with the Lord and finding out who you are and learning to love yourself first.
Yeah.
But practically, if there's somebody like that, let's say they've moved to a new town, they're having trouble making friends, they work from home and maybe don't get out, give them some practical things that you did to start to cultivate relationships in your life again.
Okay. Well, one thing for me personally was I had to stop assuming no one wanted to talk to me.
Yes, yes, yes. Yes, yes, yes.
Because the truth is, they're probably just so focused on something else.
Yes.
They don't realize you want to talk.
So I wanted to, there's a quote, I've got to find it. It's people aren't always rejecting you. They're just not thinking about you.
Yes.
And there's a difference. Rejection is an intentional, I see you and I'm going to ignore you.
Yeah.
And then, but sometimes people just don't even see you because they are
true.
so busy
It's true.
with their own crisis or their own life or their own family that they didn't even see you.
Yeah.
They didn't reject you. They just didn't see you.
Yes.
I'm so glad you said that.
It's
That's a big deal.
it's a huge deal. And I think everyone does that, like thinking like, oh, well, Melissa, she didn't talk to me today. She must
walked
not actually like me.
She walked right by me
Yes.
and didn't even say hello.
An offense immediately settles in. And you're now you avoid the person because you've been offended they didn't speak.
Or you think they don't like you.
Yes. And it creates so much chaos because then now Melissa has to figure out why I didn't talk to her.
Yeah.
Because I'm offended because she didn't talk to me. It's ridiculous.
And then you'll say like, hey, Melissa, you remember that time? And I'll be like, no, I really don't. I'm so sorry. I don't.
Yeah. I mean, even when we first came here, I mean, there were friendships that I probably did that with. And it's so sad now because I can think back and be like, man, I miss talking to that person or, you know, but again, in that season, I was just in an unhealthy place and made all kinds of assumptions, you know.
Yeah.
So that would be my number one piece of advice.
That was good. That was good.
Don't do that. Secondly, step out of your comfort zone because there have been some friends that I have made here that I would have never naturally talked to.
Give me an example. So tell me about you from your personal experience. What was a comfort zone you stepped out of?
For me, was really talking to anybody.
Like being on this podcast.
Yes. And it's funny because I laid in bed last night and I told Cameron, I was like, the Lord really does have a sense of humor. And if people don't think that he does, they're so wrong because this and talking about this topic is a full circle moment with God.
Oh,
It just is.
I love it.
So, I mean, even 3 years ago, I wouldn't have imagined I'd be giving any advice on friendships. Yes. So thank you, Lord, for redeeming me.
He has.
Yeah, a comfort zone for me probably would have been like if I saw a group of ladies that I knew have known each other, I would never step into that because it just felt uncomfortable. Oh, I don't fit in. Oh, they have inside jokes. And so I would just immediately eliminate myself even from the equation before I ever was in the equation.
Yeah.
So
to step out of your comfort zone would be, I'm not comfortable doing this, but I'm going to step into this group and contribute to what they're doing.
Yeah.
That's outside your comfort zone.
A great example is there's been this a book study that I wanted to do during Advent. And so 2 of my comfort zone people is Christy Wilson and Heidi Ledbetter. Mm-hmm. We do a lot of things together. And so I said, hey, would you girls want to do this study with me? And they were like, sure. And I said, okay, great. So now your task is you have to ask one person to join us. And so I just asked the Lord to highlight somebody to me to ask, and he did. And I asked her, and she's not somebody I talk to regularly. She's not somebody that I necessarily do life with every day. But I asked her anyway. So
and what did she say?
She said yes. So that's just a good example. You know, even if you feel uncomfortable asking someone new something, maybe do it with a few people that you are comfortable with.
Yeah.
Because they might need a new friend too.
Yes.
You know, I don't know what she needs. I don't know what any of these ladies need.
Yeah.
But I know that I need them.
Yes.
So
that to me is the importance of living in community and finding people that you can connect with. First of all, you have to place value on what you can bring to the table, on what you can contribute.
Yeah.
And realize that you have something of value and worth to give because God made you.
Yes.
And he has put gifts inside of you. You are unique. There is nobody like you. Nobody can bring the exact same thing to the table that you bring.
It's true.
And that you are needed. But then also within each other, like Holly has something in her that Melissa needs.
Sure.
And this is why we connect,
Yeah.
is knowing that God has created us to come together to bring healing to each other. Look at Jamie Houston coming into your life and bringing so much healing that one, you didn't want.
Yes.
And 2, you didn't think you needed because you didn't think there was anything wrong with you.
Right.
But then now that you are 3-4 years later, you go, oh, I was so broken.
Yeah.
And it took somebody coming into your life to help you see exactly what you were going through. Give me another practical thing.
I sort of feel like these things go together.
Okay.
Lose your ego.
Okay.
And stop worrying about the labels that you think people have placed on you.
Interesting.
Because for me personally, a lot of my friendships were because of my lack of identity. Mm-hmm. And so I just felt like I had to kind of keep this face on, like I had things together that I didn't actually have together.
Yeah.
And so I had to just lose my pride a little bit and admit that I needed someone. And I also had to really lose the things that I felt like labels people had placed on me. Oh, she's controlling. Oh, she's always got it together. Or, oh, she just isn't very nice. Or, you know, whatever the label is that you feel like somebody's placed on you. And that was a big deal for me because when we came here, I felt like I was the only thing I could ever be was what someone else said I was. Mm-hmm. And so I let that hinder me from a lot of things, not just friendships. So I think that when you just drop your pride and let the Lord lead you to people, the labels automatically fall away.
Yeah.
The identity crisis really starts crumbling. And one of the best things that anyone ever said to me was, I think you've forgotten that the Lord, he thinks you're amazing.
Yes.
And so I had to really realize like, okay, I'm good. I am not stuck up or angry, or I don't want to be those things.
Right.
Why did I allow them to just latch on to me? Mm-hmm. So for me, I think definitely just drop those things. Just let them go. Lay them down.
Yeah. Yeah. I think you've said some really great things that I think are going to help a lot of people, for sure. So what's next with some of your friends? You have a brunch coming up.
I do.
Tomorrow.
Tomorrow, yes.
Yep. Well, when you guys listen to this, we'll have already had the brunch. But
So
Holly's
sorry.
like having people over to her house. Yeah, I know. So sorry you couldn't come. I'm sure it was great. I'm going and taking a quiche.
Yes. And there'll be plenty of coffee.
But what do you do with friends around the holidays? What are some of your favorite things to do with friends?
I just love being with people. And if you come to our house, we have a long table with lots of chairs.
I love that.
We don't even really sit in our living room most of the time. We stay at the table.
Yeah.
And that's just where we congregate. And really that started actually when we moved here, because I can't remember a time before we moved here that we ever sat at our table. And so when we moved here, we became very intentional. We are going to sit at this table as a family. We are going to eat this meal together. And it's just kind of become an overflow. When people come to our house, we sit at the table.
Because you even do like brunch sometimes, Sunday morning brunches, and have people to your house.
Yeah.
And opening up your home. And I know that that's a big deal for you too, opening up your house.
Yes.
You have to be willing to open up. We talked about that
Yes.
a little bit earlier before we hit record, about opening up our homes and our lives to people to live in true community. So
It's true.
Holly, I'm glad we're friends.
I'm glad we're friends.
I can't wait for brunch tomorrow.
Yes.
I love this sweet lady. You'd never know that just a few years ago, she struggled to get out of her house and make friends. Holly is one of the kindest, most thoughtful people I know, and her family game is strong. I love how she was able to speak so honestly about some difficult seasons in her life. If you are struggling with any of the things we talked about today, be encouraged that there is hope. Hope is the simple belief that things can change. Holly's story is proof. If we're not connected yet on social media, find me on Instagram or Facebook under the name Melissa Matheson. That's math, like 4 + 1 = 5, I before E, son, S-O-N. Friends, I hope you plan to join us each week on Mondays and Wednesdays as we sit around the table, have a cup of coffee, and talk about what's next, God.